Once again, Mike, the Phillies made major news, a big blockbuster trade. Ruben Amaro, give him credit, even back with Pat Gillick. 4 years in a row they've gone out and got themselves starting pitching help. Fantastic they did this. But is Roy Oswalt, now they have Roy Story 2, Roy Halladay, Roy Oswalt. Is Roy getting a starting pitcher really what this team needed? I see areas in the bullpen. I see areas where they're not hitting with men on scoring position. Maybe they could have used a hitter or a bullpen person. Is a starting pitching what they really needed here?
I think you always need starting pitching. I think you can always get better in that area. The bullpen is a problem, but I think sometimes people overstate the extent to which it's a problem. It's kind of like every time the bullpen gives up a run, that's regarded as kind of like a disaster or like a failure in the context of that game, in a way that really isn't when a starting pitcher gives up a run. So that's, I don't know. I think that sometimes we get a little carried away with that. I'm not saying their bullpen situation is optimal. It certainly isn't. But again, and the other thing is, I'm not sure that you can solve it with a trade. And I certainly don't think you can solve hitting with runners in scoring position with a trade. So I don't have any problem with this.
I think that you can solve it even one of these after the trade deadline, one of these waiver type deals. Scott Air came in a couple years ago and was that type of thing. A nice lefty that can be a situational lefty. They only have one lefty down the bullpen, J.C. Romero. They need some help there.
Okay, but if they get Scott Air, we're not going to say then their bullpen's
We're not talking Scott Air. We're talking somebody
if they get the equivalent of Scott Air.
You need somebody else down there. That bullpen's got so many holes right now. Why is Danny Baez down there? He's down there to be the interpreter for Jose Contreras.
Well, somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it. That's the reason why Baez is still there. Lidge, I'm sorry, he blew another save. He's blown 4 out of 14 opportunities. That's too many. Matson can't close. He can only be a setup man. For whatever reason, in his head, he can't do it. Chad Durbin, maybe he can close. Contreras, they've got so many guys that have not slotted in their position. And this time of the year, you need guys to be able to slot into positions if that's what you're going to be doing. And they don't have that yet. So I think you can't have a good starting pitcher give you 6, 7, 8 innings and then turn over to that bullpen right now because they have been unreliable.
Oh, and the other thing about this is that clearly with Oswalt, acquiring Oswalt, they're thinking not just about getting to the playoffs, but about winning in the playoffs, which when we have seen the impact of if you have 3 like top shelf starting pitchers, that's really all you need in the postseason. And you could argue that they have that now with Halladay, Oswalt, and Hamels. Although Oswalt was not very good in his first start. And another thing about this trade is the Astros were dumb about this trade. They put too much money into it. They didn't ask for enough. They put the Phillies in a position where it was hard to say no.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Phillies, I think, were the only team bidding for Oswalt.
I think so, too, yeah.
And I don't think they gave up that much. Granted, the young outfielder, they've compared him to Crawford with Tampa Bay. We'll see. He's got a lot of.
That just means he can run. That's all
he's
that
athletic,
means.
yeah.
I mean, let's
and the shortstop has 42 errors. I don't want to hear he's the heir apparent to Jimmy Rollins or Jimmy Rollins' replacement. 42 errors. He's a long way off too, as well.
Yeah.
Yes, J-Happ is pretty good, but he hasn't done anything this year. He was injured both years, his rookie year and this year.
And of course, he goes to Houston and pitches his best game of the year.
Yeah.
That's the same day that Oswalt is getting racked around, so it looks bad. But
I'll say this: if Oswalt can come around and be like he was a few years ago, yes, they would be in great position for the postseason. But they have to get there. They blew a save the other day. They'd already be 1.5 games out of first. They're still 2.5. This infield, though, this team has had so many injuries. If Ryan Howard winds up having to go in the DL and he's getting his ankle looked at by more experts, the whole infield would be on the DL at some point during the year. Victorino's there now. And the outfield, Ibanez has got a bad, he's not on the DL, but a bad wrist. That means everybody but Worth has been on
really everybody but Jason Worth has been hurt. And I don't think there's any team.
2.5 back.
Right. I don't think there's any team in baseball. The Red Sox have had a lot of injuries too, but I don't think quite to the extent that the Phillies have had. If you really take inventory of the whole picture, I don't think quite to the extent that the Phillies have had. It is remarkable that they're still in it, and no matter what we want to say about quantitatively, in terms of commitment, they're willing to spend the money. They want to win. They want to win the World Series this year, and they're kind of all in that regard.
It says a lot about the character, how these guys keep fighting back. And I will say a lot about Ruben Amaro Jr. If Cliff Lee was a mistake of that trade, he's trying to make up for it now. He can't take it back, but he's showing, hey, that was a mistake, and I'm going to admit to it without saying the words, but making this move says we understand we need to go do something else.
I agree 100%. I wrote that on my blog, actually. I like, if that was a mistake, and I think it was with Cliff Lee, I admire the fact that Amaro did not take that as a reason to retreat into a shell and instead be bold and aggressive and address it.